I sort of hate sometimes it's very easy for us to be like, only work for companies full of values, but sometimes you just got to pay the bills or you've got to feed yourself and others. And it's not that simple. So I suppose it is like the small things, and some of them can just be very human things of being nice to each other. It doesn't have to be grand gestures.
You leave school or university 1 minute, the next thing you know, you find yourself working at any place that will have you. And later, if you're lucky and have worked hard enough, you enjoy the luxury of steering your own ship and finding purpose and meaning in your creative work. That was certainly the case for this week's guest, Kirsty Minns, Executive Creative Director at Mother London, who has shaped her entire career by choosing to work for companies and brands that have values in line with her own. Mother itself is an agency with a strong purpose she was drawn to, in that it aims to create work that would make their mothers proud. But Kirsty says it's more than that. It's also about making the next generation proud, leaving a legacy on which to build. That's whether you're behind campaigns that do good or working with clients who really have their houses in order and are making a difference. But as Kirsty says, it doesn't always have to be a big grand gesture. Small steps and a little kindness can make a huge difference to our industry and the world. We all have the power to speak up, suggest something better, or even adapt our own way of thinking. It all helps. Before we dive into our conversation though, if you don't mind, I'd like to dedicate this week's episode to Richard Cowan. Kirsty, it's great to see you finally have this chat we've been planning for ages.
I'm very excited to be here and chatting to you as well.
Oh, thanks, hon. And now we've got that awkward bit out the way.
Hiya.
Oh, hello. Oh, podcasting. It's all the fun. So here we are. And I think we kick things off really by saying what a lovely ethos there is behind Mother.
Yeah, it was definitely what attracted me to the business in the first place. I've been here for 5 years now. And when you come into the business, we've got this wall of mum. All of our mums are up against the wall. So you kind of come into the office and your mum's shining down on you, because the whole premise was always about work that makes your mothers proud. So that's just quite nice when you're like on your business. When we had business cards back in the day, everyone had a picture of their mums on the business cards as well. So yeah, it's a lovely foundation of which the business has been built.
Yeah. What's your photo of your mum like?
Oh, well, it was actually quite hard. My mum, bless her, she spent ages trying to pick an image that didn't look too like, she didn't want something that looked over sexy or like, so it's my mum actually like at the bottom of a heap of skiing. She'd only been skiing once and like was really terrible at it. So it's a picture of her at the bottom of a hill on her skis.
Love it.
It was better than the first option that she sent in her kind of 80s power suit. So I think.
Oh, wow. What with the shoulder pads and.
Some of the mums are very glamorous though. Yeah. I have to say.
Yeah, I'd be keen to come and see that, because I find it's that they're obviously the people that helped build us and what make us who we are. You know, I always like the joke, if there isn't one thing, it's your mother. But they are the brilliant people who kind of, you know, told us that we could do anything if we were lucky to have mums as good as that were like there to nurture our kind of passions. And
yeah, I think though, like over the last couple of years, we've made a bit of a shift, because I think it's a great philosophy and a foundation, but I think everyone felt like with everything that's happening in the world, maybe looking back was not always as helpful as maybe looking forward. And so I think we've kind of shifted a little bit that mentality of thinking about, you know, creating an industry that makes our children proud or the next generation proud. And I think that's been sort of quite an important shift, rather than always looking back, like actually thinking about looking forward and building something that's that you're proud of being called a designer in or a creative in. I suppose that's what the premise was behind making our children proud.
I like it. It's kind of like self-reflection. Okay, this is a really nice ethos, but actually what we're leaving behind is probably more important. What's the legacy that we're kind of leaving our kids?
Well, that's a big, well, yeah, it's a very...
Oh, no, it wasn't a question. It was just a statement. No pressure.
I was going to say that there's just silence of like, especially given
I know.
the current, yeah.
I mean,
I'll let you pause there. What are we leaving our kids?
It's a very complicated time, isn't it? Interestingly, I had a chat with Stefan Sagmeister last month about how the world is getting better. When you look at all the stats, child mortality down massively. We're living longer. Way more of us are not living in, awful poverty. Believe it or not, there's fewer, things to, there's not as many wars. Even though that probably doesn't feel like it right now. And it feels like I'm being insensitive saying these things. That's really not my intention, but the world in general is getting better. And I do believe that the creative industry has a big part in continuing that momentum.
Definitely. And I think like I think that first and foremost, it's about creating like an industry that we're proud of, like how we can use creativity for good or like keep the creative industry alive in an exciting way for the next generations, rather than, I guess what am I trying to say? Understanding our role within making our children proud versus, I joke to you, I'm not Greta Thunberg. I would love to be, but sadly I'm not. But just trying to do the bits that you can do and use your skills for good where you can make an impact.
Yeah, because sometimes it's not like going to be this massive thing. It's like, as anybody who works in the creative industry knows, you're up against so many different things. It could be just small steps, or it could be that you're just sort of working on a campaign that has great meaning behind it. Not necessarily the brand is perfect, but steps will be taken to get there.
Exactly, because I think otherwise you can just tie yourself in knots and end up doing nothing because you're like, well, this is all meaningless. Why am I doing this? Versus being like, okay, if I can make incremental small steps every day, even if it's just about making someone entertained out of their 5 minutes in their day, like, and making them laugh for 5 minutes, that can be as powerful. It's not the only thing you can do, but I think it's not getting paralysis because you can't solve everything.
No,
and I think that's an important thing to think about.
But you have worked on some dream projects. I mean, Greenpeace for Glastonbury being one of them.
That was amazing. It was such a dream brief. And it came about from a lunchtime conversation with one of the creative directors who was working on Greenpeace at the time. And he was like, oh, they want to design, they want an album, like a cover for the track that they were releasing. And I was like, oh my God, this is a dream brief. Like, we'll get some designers together. We'll get our crayons out, draw the type. We drew like 5 different options. And yeah, it was an absolute dream. I was at Glastonbury and I saw everyone carrying the bags around the festival site. And it was amazing. It was like, sometimes you can, sometimes you work on projects that are like 6 months, but this was like 4 days. And that 4 days had as much impact as sometimes a 6-month project you might be working for somebody else over here. And I think that shows the power of creativity about how to get people to engage in a message and to communicate through design.
And Glastonbury was fun, I presume.
Oh, it was so fun. It was, so fun.
Did you get to see Elton?
Got to see Elton. I mean, what a performer. Like,
I know.
Legend. I hope that he comes back and does another comeback tour. I know it was his last one, but I feel like
isn't it always his last one? He keeps coming. He can't, it's like that old question, isn't it? Can any of us really retire? Because, you know.
Do you know what I loved about Elton as well, in terms of like talking about the next generation, is he didn't make it all about him. Whereas some of the other headliners were like so arrogant and egocentric, and it was all about them. Whereas he like brought out young artists, brought out like supported like his band. Like it was more, he is so interested in the next generation and making sure that that musical industry stays alive, that really came across. And so I suppose like that was just quite magical to watch. It's sort of him passing the baton over to the next generation of musicians.
It was very emotional to watch it on the telly back home for, you know, us unlucky bastards that couldn't get tickets. But, you know, hey ho. Yeah. And I guess in his case, he's found meaning. He's found something beyond his job. He's found something that's, you know, fires him up inside other than what he's creating. And that's like, yeah, leaving a bit of a legacy, but also like helping the next round of musicians that are coming up beneath him. And
I think also he stays really relevant from what I know. He's very interested in who all the up and coming artists are. Like he listens to the charts every week. So, and I do, not that I'm ever claiming I'm anything like Elton John, but I relate to that. I do relate to Elton, just in the fact you have to stay relevant. You know, you have to understand that the industry is not going to stay the same, and you can't expect to just exist and it to be the same, and be, you have to be comfortable with the fact that things are changing at a rapid speed, and you need to be prepared for that.
You know, Elton was one of the first backers for Mixmag, which is celebrating 40 years, I think. It's doing an exhibition. Yeah, I only just read that this morning. I was like, oh, Elton. I mean, that is quite typical of him, really, as you've said. But yeah, it is amazing. I think, actually, if we look at the music industry, it is typically the people who are prepared to move with the times and change and adapt that sort of last the distance. I mean, Madonna being one of them. She's currently on tour, isn't she? Just still throwing shapes.
She's rumoured to be playing Glastonbury, I think, next year.
Yes, she is.
She'd
indeed
be amazing. I think she understands. She definitely understands the power of a brand. You know, like she is the mother of reinvention and understands that more than anyone.
Do you have a favourite Madonna era? Are you a Madonna fan?
I quite liked her in the early 2000s. That kind of
when
era.
She made a comeback with Ray of Light, was it? Yeah, she was amazing. I like that as well. And all those kind of outfits are now back in fashion, aren't they?
What was your favourite era?
Oh, I loved Vogue era. She was just amazing. That whole kind of where she sort of took what was happening in the underground clubs in New York and then brought them to kind of, you know, popular culture, and just that kind of iconic music video back in the era when music videos were just like absolute gold. You know, we looked forward to them. Do you remember on a Thursday evening and you know, all crowding around the telly to watch Top of the Pops? My brother on his like tennis racket strumming it like a guitar, and me on a sort of like, I don't know, battery operated microphone performing to our dear parents. God,
that and recording the top 40 on a Sunday on your cassette player.
Yes, pausing and recording to avoid the adverts. Amazing.
I know, to avoid the adverts, the irony that now I work in it.
Who was the first band you ever went and saw?
I think my first band I ever went to see was Boyzone, I think. I didn't even like Boyzone, but my best friend at the time really did. So I just pretended to like them to make friends.
Oh, God. I think mine was New Kids on the Block, and we went to the NEC in Birmingham, and I was right at the back and everybody was screaming, and I was just looking around. I must have been 11. I was just thinking, why is everybody screaming? This is just absurd. And they were like about that tiny on the stage. And I think I just grew out of it pretty quickly. I think I went through a bros phase as well and wanted those bottle tops for the shoes, but my dad refused. I was like, damn. but Dad, I'm not a true Bros fan unless I've got the bottle tops on my shoes. I mean, there are people who are way younger than us potentially listening to this thinking, what the hell are they on about?
Yeah, what are they on about? Talk about some design or something.
Yeah, exactly. But, it's all relevant because at the moment, the economy's feeling sluggish and we're all kind of like coming out of, it's post-pandemic. We're in this sort of AI world now as well. It could feel quite doom and gloomy, but you've been working in this industry for a while. You've kind of ridden a few storms. It's going to get better, isn't it?
Absolutely. And I think when you look actually at trends from a design point of view, and some of the most exciting work has actually come out of these kind of periods, because I think you have to, we have to adapt. And I think going back to what you were saying about the power of creativity, that's the one thing that does separate us from, AI and like people can connect to with that. So I think there is a lot of amazing stuff that it is happening. It's not, like you say, it's not all doom and gloom, but I think it's about especially for our industry, looking forward rather than being too nostalgic about what the industry used to be like. Like, the industry has changed, technology has changed everything for all of us, and we can't just pretend and be, nostalgic about the times before that. As we've just talked about with the tape, it was an absolute nightmare. I'm really glad now we don't have to do that.
Wow. Yes. I mean, gosh, and having our Walkmans attached to our sort of jean belts, we're lucky. We're lucky to have grown up in this era where we've seen, technology completely transform the world and our careers. The opportunities we have now compared to, back when I graduated in 2000, I mean, my goodness, the internet was just a new thing. Well, I'd say more that, it was starting to impact the industry that I was heading into, which was journalism. A little thing called Google and Facebook.
Which I've had first-hand experiences of both of those things.
Well, this was going to be my next question, because you have worked at Google as creative lead. I mean, what was that like? It
was actually really an amazing experience. Like, I worked in Google Creative Lab under a guy called Steve Renakis. And I guess like what was really interesting is that particular unit is all about like using creativity as a form of communication, and got to work with some amazing people in the team. Like, there was designers, developers, writers, like all kind of working together on some really insane briefs, just really, really showing like the power of when you put an interesting mix of people together, what can be achieved. But I think the thing that stuck out to me the most was like the way that Steve really understood about how you could use the creativity and the scale of Google for good. Like, and I'm saying that not in a naive way, but like, for example, he worked on an amazing project where they looked at developing products that could be used in like low internet places to help when everything was happening in Greece. And I don't know, I think it was just amazing to see how technology can be helped at scale. I think, like sometimes part of these big organizations, they are part of the problem, but they can equally be part of the solution. And that's why I think it was really interesting seeing it from the inside. I think, so it was an amazing experience to be able to be working at like gigantic scale, but sometimes very intangible.
Yeah, I can imagine. Fascinating to get that kind of inside look. And you touch on the fact that, we get the impression sometimes that these massive brands are potentially problematic or evil. I'm not putting words into your mouth, but yes, there's this kind of, assumption that they take away a lot more than they sort of give, but actually the budget is there for them to do so much good. And I guess what we forget is that there are just human beings behind these logos and fundamentally wanting to do good things.
Yeah, it's such a tricky, complicated
I mean, I'm stumbling over my words, you know.
No, but you're right. Like, I guess there, like you say, there are amazing, incredible individuals that work within those organizations and genuinely believe that if they can use some of that technology in the right way, they do have the power to shift things for the good. Equally, though, that's where the problem is, that, you know, these tools can be used also for the bad, and I suppose that's what they're wrestling with. And but I think, like, you can't be naive and pretend that those industries don't exist. So it's better to understand exactly what's happening and what's possible, and try and do the best you can within those constructs, rather than, I suppose, wholeheartedly rejecting those industries. Because when you start unpicking all of the industries, you could unpick everything.
Yeah, you tie yourself in knots.
Going back to that point of, like, otherwise you're just going to get paralysis. You're going to not be able to do anything if you start questioning it so much. So I suppose it's just like trying to do every small bit you can, I suppose.
Mm-hmm. Domino effect, you know, it's going to make it's like throwing a pebble into a pond. It's going to have an impact, definitely. I mean, we can all make a difference.
Yeah, exactly. Hopefully, yeah.
Do you sort of lie awake at night sometimes, getting frustrated that you can't do more? Asking for a friend.
I mean, I definitely do. I think, though, like, I try and do what I can within my industry, and I suppose all I maybe think about when I wake up, when I have one of those moments, is like, okay, what can I do? What can I do today? Even if it's a small, like, whether it's an act of kindness or making, like pushing a client to have a different director list that feels more inclusive and interesting, or like, just on a daily basis, seeing what can be done rather than trying to boil the ocean, I suppose. But of course, like, you always have a crisis, particularly like in branding. You know, like, our job is to give something value by giving it a brand or giving it a face, and sometimes that can be something that isn't necessarily that's something that's needed. So I think I'm aware that I'm not Greta Thunberg.
Yeah, well, you know, we do what we can. I mean, you've had quite the journey leading up to Mother, as we've sort of seen. You believe in people's missions, and I suppose that's what got you started at Established and Sons. You kind of you liked what they were about, and so you sort of got in there on the ground as a receptionist, and the rest is history.
I think I had quite a meandering path to where I am now, I'd say. But yeah, I guess I've always chosen companies that I really believed in their values over the role. And I think, like, Established and Sons was a great example at the time when they, British manufacturing was in a terrible, dismal state. I mean, it is probably even worse now than when we started that mission. But just, like, actually the company was really about trying to support really interesting, amazing makers across the country. And I got to hang out in factories in Stoke-on-Trent in the ceramics works and
the motherland.
It was. Oh, are you from there?
Yeah, I am. Yeah, fond of the place.
It's absolutely amazing. Like, in Stoke, the generations that still work within some of these ceramic industries that people have no idea about. Like, I remember one factory, they made the most elaborate ceramic molds for regal events, and it was 4 generations worked in this space. And a lot of these industries are dying out and having a real effect on those cities. So I suppose when I joined Establish & Sons as a young designer, I just really believed in the company, but there was no jobs at the time. And also I went to Goldsmiths. So at Goldsmiths, it's an amazing degree, but you don't necessarily learn the practical skills you need to be a junior designer. So saw that there was a temp job on reception at Establish & Sons, and just got in there and tried to make myself indispensable so that they wouldn't get rid of me.
Brilliant.
And just, learned so much. And I think also working with the founders there, like Alistair Willis, who's now gone on, done Hunter, Adidas, and those kind of things. Just learned from him a lot about what it takes to build a brand. And I think that's where sort of that really started my appetite to understand what it actually takes to build a brand, and all the things that you need to know in order to do that.
Gosh, that's a really good playground then, I suppose, that you had. You got to sort of really understand from the ground up how a brand works. I mean, what is your sort of key memory from that time that you kind of always sort of fall back on, that kind of golden lesson that has just held strong ever since?
There's so many lessons. So what's the one lesson? I think it's more, do you know what? It's more the fact that a brand is not built by one single thing. You have to be able to think about every single facet, every single touch point, every single detail to be successful, in terms of from your tone of voice to the materials you're using to the way you conduct yourself with partners, from the playlists we played at exhibitions, the exhibition design, the graphics. I think the one lesson I learned is you have to think about a brand in this in a very 360 space. And I suppose that learning has enabled me to be able to work for so many different brands and sectors, because I understood that you can't just look at it as one thing. You can't just look at it as, well, do a great product. You might have a great product, but if no one knows about your brand, or you don't know how to communicate, you're just going to disappear. Or if you don't understand about the commercial side of it, you're going to be irrelevant in a few years. So I think it was just more the fact that you have to understand all of the small micro interactions that make up a brand to be successful. And I think Alistair really knew how to do that incredibly well. And I think working under him was an amazing experience to be able to see that firsthand.
A brand, can it be actually defined? Is it something that sort of is different from everybody's perspective? Can it be something that you can actually fathom and say, well, this is our anchor point? Or is it a case of trying to sort of gather everybody's idea of what it is, and then?
I think it goes back to, it has to, there's an element of both the brand that you're defining itself, but then obviously then the relationship different people are going to have with that brand. So I suppose you can control that brand you can control your self-image to a point. But I think what's really exciting about where the industry is going is that dialogue between brands and consumers has changed so much, because there are so many different ways to communicate with people now. So I think the brands that have been successful understand that, and there's room in that space in between for people to define those brands a little bit for themselves. But I think the best brands still have a really true understanding of who they are, what the values are that they believe in, and have a very strong tone of voice to be able to talk to their consumers. But I definitely think like it's more difficult than ever for brands to be able to control how people shape them.
Yeah.
I think
Gotcha.
more than ever.
Yeah. And so I suppose in that case, it's why it's more important these days to have that solid meaning, that kind of mission. Why do you exist?
But I think like within reason, like, but the mission doesn't, I think there's a misconception that your mission has to be huge and big and lofty. I think, like, for example, I don't know. There are certain brands where you're like, it feels so wrong for you to be talking about this as your mission. It's got to be aligned with what you're selling or who you are when it's just, or for example, if your toothpaste brand is like talking to you as your best mate, you just want to clean your teeth, like there's some.
I quite like Aquafresh. Other toothpaste brands are available. Is that ridiculous? I choose Aquafresh still because I love the way it comes out of the tube in the different sort of stripes. It's nostalgic.
I was going to say, but is that the toothpaste that you had as a kid?
Yeah, pretty much.
It's amazing though, like how much nostalgia does play into the attachment we have in brands, and that probably was built in over time through communications, through branding, and now it's just become such a such an emotional reaction you actually have to Aquafresh.
Yes, it's absurd. It really is. I've just been so loyal to them over 40 odd years. But I think the meaning behind these beloved brands that we interact with on a daily basis, I mean, it's not necessarily that the meaning is, something purposeful and to do good in the world. It can just be, like you say, it can just be a sort of memory, a kind of connection, something that we feel emotion towards, that makes us feel good. That can be a good thing.
And actually with that in mind, there's ways as designers, we sometimes play into some of those like cues of understanding about nostalgia and about how you might feel about some of those, particularly, for example, in food brands, there is so much nostalgia within that sector. And we worked with a plant-based food brand called Arlie's, where we actually played into that rather than kind of creating a brand that was, one of these protest brands shouting at you on the aisles. We actually were like, wouldn't it be more interesting to play more into the nostalgia space and that tradition to actually get meat eaters to feel more familiar with a plant-based product rather than just speaking to the much smaller percentage of vegans that exist in the market. And again, just playing with like typefaces and color palettes and the photography just really lent into that feeling of nostalgia that really draws us to certain brands. So I think there's some amazing stuff you can learn from why that exists, why you feel such a strong connection to them.
That's really interesting, because I suppose there's also the danger when you are doing these projects that if you put a mission behind it, it might actually do the opposite and put people off. Yeah,
exactly. I think that's exactly what we found when we did a lot of research into the marketplace of what were some of the barriers to why meat eaters weren't trying some of these substitute plant-based products. And it was that unfamiliar territory and that feeling of like, that they're not speaking to me, therefore I'm going to reject them. And so then you end up with some products that just very much sit in an echo chamber of, we've all seen there's so many amazing hipster packaging that exists currently in East London as I sit here talking to you. But, I think actually just understanding that isn't the rest of the world. And actually there are barriers that you can use design to help break those barriers down and make people feel less intimidated by something as simple as swapping out their their meat to something plant-based.
Yeah, exactly. I was thinking of garlic bread from Peter Kay then. I don't know why. Garlic bread.
Oh, garlic bread. I love.
What is this? Taste sensation. Oh, and of course, I suppose, the world has changed so much in the last 4 or 5 years. I was talking to Paula Scher last month as well, and she was saying that, they've had to rethink some of the ways that they are, sell tickets through the public theatre, because it used to be that they pushed for the season ticket, but since COVID, people now just buy one-off. So they're having to adapt, and that was just, from research that they carried out. I just find that fascinating. It's the consumer behaviour that might have changed as well, that you've probably been discovering at Mother too.
Yeah, I think across all industries, it's it's massively changed. But also, actually, interestingly, lots of behaviours have gone. Some of the consumer behaviours have gone back to before. So some things have stuck. I think, if anything, more like the attitude towards, like we've had to adapt from a working environment point of view, actually. More the industry, like before, the creative industry was very much an in-person, 5 days a week. And I think, like, actually, the biggest impact I've seen is probably more on, like, changing our working styles and changing the environment in which we're creating, more so than actually consumer habits. Interestingly, a lot of them have just gone back to, like you say, the familiar in some ways.
That's interesting. I would love to come and spend a week just being involved in the research of a project, because I would find that so interesting, seeing what you take and what you gather to be able to sort of do your work effectively.
Yeah, and we're really lucky, because we've got an amazing strat team here that does a lot of on the ground research, and also we work with lots of interesting partners. But it's always the best. It's the bit of the project I love the most, like actually the psychology of, like, what makes people tick, what makes people buy things, what makes people, like, change behaviors. Like I worked on this amazing project for a female, like, hygiene brand, and that was just fascinating about, like, people's talking about nostalgia, but their connection to, like, the big sanitary towel brands, like people don't switch, and like and even like in the times of unrest, people are more likely to even stick with the familiar. They don't want to try something new in those moments of something as big as that. So, like, tapping into that again, like, how do you get people to change or buy your brand? It was quite amazing listening to people's stories and understanding the psychology behind such a everyday product. I can get a bit nerdy about it. The algorithms.
Oh no, I like the nerdy.
The algorithms are very confused about who I am. Like, as in, I sometimes get served up adverts for, like, male impotence, sanitary towels. I get a lot of, like, sometimes they think I'm a teenage boy. Sometimes, like, I'm a 60-year-old woman. It really is very confused at what it serves me.
You're fluid, darling. You're a new woman. I think you're sort of delving a little bit. You're hinting at behavioral design there as well. And if we go back to the theme of our conversation about finding meaning in what we do, behavioral design can sometimes be accused of being something of a dark art. Where do you sit with that? I mean, I'm not suggesting that you sort of delve into, kind of anything sinister, but it's just simple things, isn't it? Like the way something like a button on a website is placed, or even a color choice.
I think it's a really amazing, like, fascinating topic, and I think it's really important as designers you understand that it can be, it can the impact of what that can mean. And I suppose that's why, like, for example, there'll be certain partners that we would never work with, like gambling or
Sure.
oil, or like, because, you know, like we understand how to communicate and how to engage people, or to get people to emotionally feel something about a brand, and we can't be naive in thinking that can be used for bad reasons. And I think, like, but then that's why it's really important to educate yourself into knowing exactly what you're doing and what that impact might be, and to question those things all the time. Particularly like when you're saying, when you're talking about UI design, like wanting people to spend more time online, like what the impact of a designer can be in someone's life. So I think it's like, it's trying to push for that same knowledge to be used for a positive thing. But I think we have to be aware of the fact that communication and design can be a powerful tool for both sides, and we have to be aware of the responsibility of that, and not be naive to when it is being used in a way that we don't want it to be.
Yeah, it's when you work in this industry as well. Once you understand it, you can't not see it. But it doesn't stop me from endlessly scrolling Instagram for hours and sending ridiculous cat videos to my sister-in-law.
I think also, like, I feel very lucky because I've always managed, apart from my stint at Google, I've always worked for independent businesses. So have had the ability, when, you know, to be able to talk to people at any level, which, again, like thinking about values and the sorts of businesses that people want to work in, I think that's always been really important to me, that independence, to be able to question, like, this doesn't feel right. Like, and we do that for every piece of new business that comes in. We'll be like, okay, where do we sit on this? What could be some of the things that could go wrong? Like, let's just talk about them, because, you know, no one is perfect. And I suppose it's like trying to educate and make sure that we're doing the best we possibly can.
Yeah, I love that. It's almost like you have this tapestry that you've been weaving as you go along, and it's always sort of had this thread with this one being of meaning and value, and that's clearly very important to you. But have you ever found yourself in situations where you just didn't believe in something anymore and your integrity kicked in and you thought, oh, I've got to make a change?
Oh, that's a good question. Do you know what? I've always believed in, like, leaving on a high. So I've always left companies where I still liked them.
Love it. That's brilliant.
Have I ever? I think yes. I at the very beginning of my career, I worked in fashion editorial, and I suppose that I found quite hard when at the time, you know, there was a lot of people who weren't paid in that industry. I mean, this is like, things have changed now a lot, but so this is like over 20 years ago. But I think, like, part of my seeking of, like, I guess, businesses with value was seeing the reality of that, of an incredibly creative, amazing industry that was very much operating with people who were not paid. And I suppose I felt really compromised about that. So I think I purposely wanted to go to an organization that at least understood the value of human time rather than, like, being paid nothing. So I think, like, that's definitely something that I've been compromised on, or similarly, if our work's not valued by a client here, we would walk away, because actually the money isn't the most important thing. It's the value of the value of the people and the value of the team. So we have walked away from clients before, more because we felt like the relationship wasn't going to be positive. We weren't going to make great work. We weren't going to have fun. And actually that was a decision that we're lucky enough to make here. But yeah, So I think there's probably hundreds of examples.
Yeah. I mean, it's a
sure.
dilemma, isn't it? Yeah, it's a dilemma for small studios and freelancers who are just sort of building businesses. They sometimes, probably more often than not, have to sort of face these difficult decisions because there's bills to pay and, you know, possibly suppliers and staff.
That's exactly that, actually. You know, like at the very beginning of my career, I worked, you know, on bank mergers, doing design branding for bank mergers, things like that. Like I didn't have any money. So what was I couldn't, sometimes I think having values is an incredibly privileged position to be in. And there are multiple times at the beginning of my career where I couldn't afford to have values. I just had to pay the bills. And that I would hate. Yeah, I sort of hate sometimes it's very easy for us to be like, only work for companies where they have, you know, that are full of values. But sometimes you just got to pay the bills or you've got to feed yourself and others. And it's not that simple. So I suppose it is like the small things. And some of them can just be very human things of being nice to each other. It doesn't have to be you don't have to necessarily always do grand gestures.
You can speak up and stick up for a colleague, or you can suggest a new kind of scheme at work, or, you know, all these little things that you could do that could make a difference. But then the thing I worry about during these, you know, downturns when the economy feels slow is, you know, these missions for good risk being put on the back seat. When profits become more important and surviving rather than like doing things for good, you know, that's my concern. These you know, well-meaning kind of campaigns by brands, do they still get priority when money is tight?
I hate the brands that only do it as kind of a one trick pony of like, because they feel like they have to. And I suppose though, in those cases, what we try to do is encourage kind of change from behind the scenes. So like, I think it's not just about the campaigns that go out in the world. It's also about the people you're partnering with behind the camera, you know, like making sure you're giving those opportunities to new directors, or like, you know, making sure that you, think about, like, before you jump on a plane to fly and work on a shoot, that can it be done in the UK? Like all these like more micro things that we can do our side to still do the best we can, rather than like, you know, always being able to change completely what that set brand needs to talk about that month. So But I agree with you. Like the ones where they just put it out once a year and then expect that to be enough, it isn't enough. You know, like, and that's the ones that kind of you'd rather they just be true to themselves rather than pretend.
Speaking of morals and ethics, I'm going to bring up AI now. Yes. I feel like I need kind of like a sound effect or something, some kind of doom and gloom. But I'm on the fence with it, to be honest. I'm an optimist at heart, so I kind of see it as a tool that will require human with meaning and value behind it and ideas. So I'm kind of on that kind of side of the argument, but I also have played around with it, and it is terrifying what it can do.
It's terrifying.
I was going to ask, have you had clients ask about it? Is it something you're discussing at Mother?
Yes, like a lot, because I think we'd be in the dinosaur ages to
You'd be
not.
Foolish not to. I agree.
I mean, it's we look at it from all sides of the business. I think one things that we really want, because a lot of clients do ask about it, but it's really understanding, like particularly from like a copyright point of view, like in terms of, I feel incredibly we would never want to like use it as a tool to produce a final advert that has copied somebody's work down the line. So there's a lot of research that's happening in terms of like all of that kind of the implications of that world. I think we play around with it more from like a creative tool and a creative process point of view. Like more to be a potential sparring part, like another sparring partner in the creative
brainstorming
process.
and coming up with ideas and that kind of thing.
Yeah, but I think the reality, you have to understand the tools and where the tech is going. And then I think it is then about making some decisions. Some of them will be moral decisions about how and when it's used. And I think we're just treading very sensitively and very carefully. And from a client point of view, making sure they're fully aware of how the technology works as well. So they understand that the value that we bring versus the value that then a machine can bring. And I think if anything, we're just doubling down on creativity and processes that the AI can't achieve, but working with it rather than there is no point in working against it, or again, going back to a nostalgic time when it didn't exist. It's here, it's growing every day, and we have to be able to understand the technology to make sure that we don't become irrelevant. I mean, and I think that's the reality, that the people that are dismissing it will struggle in the future then to have a role. And I think it's naive for people to pretend it's not here. And I think that's what's been so interesting about the film, the strikes in the film industry. I feel like there needs to be those kind of conversations in the creative industry. There needs to be some sort of broader charter in place that talks about
Agreed.
what we're all comfortable with and what we want to protect. So again, what's the future of the industry we want to shape, and do we want to shape it where certain roles might not exist, but also equally new exciting roles might exist. But I think currently we kind of need to get everyone together to have these conversations and in the way that the film industry, definitely.
But they've got to be had, because I don't think any of us really know what's going to happen. We're just kind of ChatGPT 4, for example, is incredible. Imagine what it's going to be like at the next stage. I mean, you just cannot even fathom.
Also, what I love about ChatGPT is it's very complimentary, it's very positive. Once I asked it to write a biography for me, and it was just I think it was trying to manifest for me what I'm going to be like in 5 years' time. It was very
well,
very charming.
What? You know what? I read somewhere that being nice to it is it does us good to be nice to it, because God knows where this thing's going to go. I mean, if this thing turns into, if they sort of bring ChatGPT 7 or whatever it is into one of those kind of Boston Dynamic robot things in the future, and it'll probably be in our lifetime, right? I don't know. Maybe I'm being over optimistic. I mean, it would be nice to see something like that in my lifetime, although I have seen Terminator 2 as we all have. Yeah, we've seen how that played out. I kind of think, wow, it's going to remember. So I better be nice. I better be polite. Definitely. And ask please and remember my thank yous.
But I think we've got bigger human problems to probably contend with first. Maybe it's the machine is a welcome distraction from the rest of.
Just don't ask the robots, how they solve climate change or anything like that, because they might then sort of think, oh yeah, humans are the problem.
Then we're going into the apocalypse.
Hey.
What a good way to end.
Oh, I know. It's wonderful and cheery. We can joke about these things. But, if we were going to go back to this theme of value and meaning, I am, and I'll repeat it, I am an optimist. I'm a strong believer in that we have so much value as creatives that no matter what comes next, we will always be able to justify our kind of profession. I like that you're doubling down. I really like that sentiment, and that you're kind of encouraged to look at how you do things, your processes, how you can improve Mother and everything that you do. And I'm sure that's an ongoing mission.
Yeah, I think that's the lesson. You've just got to take these incremental steps every day and not try and boil the ocean.
Yes. I mean, this whole series, it's been quite amusing. I've been chatting with different people, and the running theme seems to be about, the future and what all the hope that we have to hold on to, and why we should be optimistic. I mean, we are coming out of a very difficult era, aren't we? So it's nice that, you're so positive and you kind of are doing all these wonderful things at just one creative agency in London.
I also think we're incredibly lucky. We're we're working for an amazing company. It's very privileged to get to do a job that you love every day. So I am also hyper aware of that position that I guess that's also why I'm very positive about creativity as well. I feel very lucky that we're in a position where we can make some sort of change, or at least try to.
Well, it's wisdom that our mothers gave us, count our blessings and all that.
Exactly.
Well, on that positive note, Kirsty, thank you so much for joining me today. And
thank you.
We'll look forward to seeing what you're up to next.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you to Kirsty Minns for being our guest this week. And now for the usual sales pitch. If you haven't already, please subscribe to our show via creativeboom.com/podcast. And hey, if you're enjoying our episodes, please do leave us a review. We'd love to hear what you think. It really helps. Next time, we'll be chatting with Metz T. Bryan, co-founder and production partner at The Oar, a creative agency she launched in 2021. The theme is all about embracing change and why adaptability is one of the most important traits any of us can have, particularly right now during these very interesting times. See you then.